Hi everyone, welcome back to Plant and Prosper. I'm your girl KD. I have the amazing Lynn May, our resident rock star, who I think is wearing a new shirt for us today.
I am,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact.
Black and white again.
It is Rage Against the Machine. Are you familiar with Rage Against the Machine?
I believe it was a musician who was very angry in the 90s.
Well, they're known for several hits like Bullet in the Head, Killing in the Name of.
Killing in the Name of.
That's the one.
No, I just said the title again
okay.
really convincingly.
Well, they're no longer around because they broke up. But there's a new band from the members, Tom Morello, called Prophets of Rage. With,
Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Prophets
with
of
the guy
Rage.
from Cypress Hill and the guy from Public Enemy.
Oh, is this like the band that you always go see that?
I have seen them
Yeah.
several times, but yeah, so I'm a big fan. Rage Against the Machine.
Boom.
I learned
this
something
is so. This is
every
vintage.
day.
This is a classic.
It is. It is true.
And then we have the lovely, amazing Anya Kravitz.
Thank you.
How is everything going with you
Good.
this week?
Everything's going good.
Oh my gosh, I love that color on you.
Thank you. It's my signature color. Next week I'm gonna have, actually in a few weeks I'll have pink hair to match the shirt.
Ooh, I'm not sure I can handle that. Pink lips, pink
Yes, you
hair,
can.
and a pink outfit. Well, today on Plant and Prosper, what we wanted to do was give a primer on Cannabis 101, and we have such a lovely resource that we wanted to tap into Lynn's 20 years of experience talking about everything about from what is in the plant to why does the plant work for us. Then we'll do a little discussion on dosing and deliveries and the types of products that are available in the market that might not be known to the everyday consumer. And of course, I'm sure there'll be some laughs along the way.
Yeah.
So Lynn, if you could kick us off, Cannabis 101, what do we need to know about the plant?
I haven't been called lovely in a long time, so I appreciate that.
Did I call you lovely?
I like that.
Ah,
I like that.
the lovely Lynn May.
So I wanted to tell a story. So I was contacted by a surgeon who does reconstructive surgery for cancer patients where they remove cancer from face and neck and they do reconstructive surgery, really serious surgeries. So there's a group of them that really want to invest in the cannabis space. So I create a slide deck. I have 2 slides about the endocannabinoid system, the rest about regulations and everything we talked about in the previous show. So I go through the deck and I start going through the different slides, and I go through a slide that says endocannabinoid system, and I skip through it. I'm like, you guys know this stuff. And then one of the surgeons in the group says, hey, can you go back to that slide? I spent 45 minutes talking to 6 surgeons about the endocannabinoid
That's
system.
crazy. That is crazy. Isn't it mind-blowing that doctors don't even know what an endocannabinoid system
Not
is?
only doctors, but surgeons. And the reason why they don't know, because they were never taught that in medical school. They went through medical school and have practiced medicine for those many years without actually understanding that we have this system.
What I find irritating about that is that if you really are using cannabis in a medicinal way, you are really working with a 21-year-old or a 22-year-old bud tender at this liquor store, dispensary store layout in which you have to spill publicly with everyone else. Here's what, like, if
Yeah.
you even get into an in-depth conversation about what you're working with, and then the 21-year-old's like, cool, let me go get you something. Like, that's the interaction
Yeah.
to buy cannabis.
Or you could do it the way I did it, and actually Len helped me. I transitioned on my own, but I did all the research on my own. I educated myself because the doctors were not encouraging me to get off my pharmaceuticals. So I had to be my own doctor, and I had to seek advice from various different people, including Len.
Well, in that spirit, why don't you start off with talking about the plant, specifically terpenes, cannabinoids, and give us the ABCs of the plant.
Quickly.
Okay, so I'll do it as fast as possible. Yes. Chop, chop. So we're all born with an endocannabinoid system. And basically, the endocannabinoid system is our regulatory system. So it helps maintain homeostasis. So we have receptors in our central nervous system and throughout our bodies and our immune
What is
system.
homeostasis?
Balance.
Balance. Good.
It helps to maintain balance within our system. That's a really good question. So when we have, our body produces its own natural endogenous endocannabinoids. So we produce endocannabinoids, and when we have a deficiency in our own natural producing endocannabinoids, our body communicates.
And if it's not obvious, endocannabinoids, cannabinoids in cannabis.
Correct.
see the connection. So there's
See and
cannabinoids in cannabis, the plant,
Correct.
that are what we call phytocannabinoids.
Correct.
And we, in our bodies, also have a system called endocannabinoids.
Correct.
Which means that we're connected to plants.
That is correct. And
Yes.
we're born with receptors to be able to take those phytocannabinoids and convert them to what we need and mimic our endocannabinoid
Okay,
system.
how awesome is that, by the way?
Well, I loved how you said we're connected to plants, and I was imagining in some very gypsy way, but you are absolutely right.
Yes.
We are connected to plants. We have the same system
Yeah.
that they have in our bodies.
Yeah, and when our own natural producing endocannabinoid system, our endogenous endocannabinoid system, when it's lacking, when we have a deficiency, our body communicates. And it communicates that through an inflammation. Once we have that inflammation, there's a signal that's sent to the central nervous system, usually in the form of pain or discomfort. And then our central nervous system sends our healing properties, our healing chemicals, like our endogenous endocannabinoids, anandamide 2-AG, all these other cannabinoids, and also other healing chemicals, aminos, glutamate, etc. And it goes.
You're getting so scientific. I'm getting
Yeah, I'm like, I love.
Did he say
I'm geeking out.
andamide?
Yes. Anandamide 2-AG, and it goes down. So, all right, it goes down this long tunnel, neurotransmitter, and stops at a place called the synapse, which, if you envision, I look at it because I have ADD, and I kind of see this image of a traffic cop with an on-off switch. So it tells things to go or not go, connect or not connect. So when you get the right amount of the right chemicals to go, it addresses that inflammation, and that pain subsides. So now you've reinstated homeostasis or balance again. So when we're lacking our own natural endocannabinoids, we have this amazing plant in nature, cannabis, and there could be others, but we only discovered one so far that's phytocannabinoids that mimic the way our natural endocannabinoids work. And the genes of that plant are called cannabinoids, phytocannabinoids, and the expression of those genes comes in terpenoids, terpenes, and flavonoids, etc. So the way that
Well, let's explain what a terpene is
Yeah.
for a lot of people who do not know. Terpenes are sort of what the scent of the plant are. Terpenes are found in a number of different plants that you might already be familiar with. So lavender, pine cones, broccoli.
basically,
Broccoli,
yeah,
that's one.
Broccoli.
So tell us terpenes and give us the breakdown
Yeah,
on what they
basically,
do.
every single substance that grows has terpenes. Terpenoids give it. You're absolutely right. Give it that smell. So the way I use an analogy with cannabis is, I use grapes. I know nothing about wine, by the way. So if you guys are wine experts, correct me and let me know. Smack me around.
I still buy the $5 wine at
All right. So,
Trader
so
Joe's.
you may not even know. So we have grape that grows in Sonoma. We have grape that grows in south of France. We have grape that grows in Italy. Genetically, it's still a grape. The way that the environment where it grows and the way that you cure that grape makes a difference. So it gives it a different smell and also a different effect. So the humidity level in the barrels, temperature and all that stuff, the expression of those genes that belong to the grape or cannabis, they come out as terpenes. And terpenes give us an effect synergistically with the cannabinoids of the plant. So I'll give you some examples. And you mentioned that they're in different plants. So let's use limonene as an example.
Yep.
So limonene smells citrusy, and that terpene is also prevalent in a lot of sativa strains. And sativa is known for up, and indica is known as down, right? It gives you a boost. So limonene actually boosts your serotonin and dopamine production, which helps to make, with sativas, it gives you a little bit of boost up. And myrcene, which is prevalent in indicas, makes you sleepy or drowsy, and that has this diesely, skunky kind of smell. And that's
Which is
probably
weird because myrcene is found in mangoes, correct?
It is found in mangoes.
Which
so.
I love,
Yeah.
but I don't associate necessarily
mangoes
with
don't put you to
smoky. Wow.
So I want to ask then. So we talked about marijuana. We talked about cannabis. We talked about terpenes. Now I want to bring in hemp into the equation because there's a lot of labels that say hemp. And there's a lot of confusion with hemp CBD, cannabis CBD. It's all over the map. Please explain hemp and cannabis, and it's all part of the family as well. The whole entire cannabis family. Cannabis, you have the hemp underneath, and then you have marijuana, which are related plants.
Yeah.
So you basically described it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't, because I want Len to go more in depth with the cannabinoids.
Well, so we have many different cannabinoids that are in the plant. There's over 400 different substances, cannabinoids, phytocannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, but hemp is more of an industrial crop. So it does not contain the active ingredient THC, which is the active cannabinoid that gives you a psychoactive effect. For the most part, it was bred out. So it's a sister plant that is very, very rich in cannabidiol, which is CBD, which is also found in a lot of different cannabis strains, which is naturally an anti-inflammatory. So when you're consuming CBD, which is on the market everywhere now, just know where your CBD is coming from, whether it's coming from the plant, which also may contain other ingredients like THC, flavonoids, terpenoids, and other phytocannabinoids that are secondary and tertiary to CBD. And if you're getting it from hemp, the way that our government defined CBD is 0.03% THC or less. But if you're getting it from hemp, you most likely are getting very, very little, if any, THC whatsoever.
Awesome. So thank you for that. So let's go into a first dispensary trip. Like, if this is your first time and you're buying cannabis in a dispensary legally, can you walk us, give us some best practices, best tips for a consumer? Well, we did this before, by the way, but it's never enough, because there's so much hunger for education, and for the right kind of education, rather than little bits and pieces. So
I think your experience with cannabis is personal. So there's a couple of different ways to look at it. So one of the ways to look at it is, what am I trying to achieve with cannabis? Am I trying to go see a movie and laugh my ass off? Cool. So let me figure out what works best for me for that. And to keep consistent. So when I go in one dispensary and I find a strain or a product that works for me, how can I make sure that I get the same exact product everywhere else? Also, how does it work with my DNA? How does it work with my genetics? So I tell this story as an example. Grandma, 50 years ago, went to a party and she had a brownie. And she had
Your grandma is very unlike my grandma. 50 years ago.
50 years ago, a brownie. They made it themselves with some cannabis butter, and she had an awful experience. She got sick, and she was very, very high, and she had anxiety. Never again. Now, Grandma watched CNN. She watched Sanjay Gupta. She watched all these different programs about this miracle plant. And unfortunately, Grandma got diagnosed with cancer. So Grandma decides to go into a dispensary, and she goes to a bud tender and talks to the bud tender, and the bud tender says, "Hey, how about this chocolate? And by the way, Grandma, don't take the whole thing. Take a little piece, maybe 20 milligrams or so." So Grandma goes back, and this person who's giving me this medicine must know what they're talking about. Grandma eats that chocolate, and 45 minutes goes by, and Grandma had the worst experience of her life. And she tells all the other people in her assisted living facility, no more. Don't take this. This is bad. And Grandma, two things. Number one, she could have taken too much THC. Second of all, it went through your digestive system, so your liver converted it to a whole different substance called 11-OH, which is much more powerful than THC itself.
Let's talk about that for a second. So there's a number of different ways that you can consume cannabis. One, you can consume how everyone thinks about smoking. Now there's vape pens where it's there's no necessarily scent or a lot of smoke that's coming from that, and it's a little bit softer on the lungs. You can use a topical. You can use edibles. You can use sublingually. You can even do it suppository style. But talk about how edibles is different than when you
lubricants,
smoke.
by the way.
And then,
And lubricants.
Ooh, yeah, there are. I mean, I've heard that's what the seniors love, is the slip and slide. That's a pro tip right there.
Right.
So tell us about why edibles are a little bit different, because edibles is my way in.
Really?
So I don't really enjoy smoking. I love edibles, but it is a fundamentally different experience because I'm consuming a different cannabinoid because of what you just described. So if you walk through that.
So when you consume THC through your digestive system, your liver converts it to a different substance, 11-oxyhydroxide, delta-9 tetracannabinol, 11-OH.
So delta 9 is what you would get when you smoke, and
THC.
delta 11
Correct.
is when you take an edible and it's through your liver.
Right. So 3 to 5 times more powerful than THC, and a different type of process. So your liver, and by the way, it depends how your liver functions. Say you have, you know, a liver you did a lot of drinking back in the day, so your liver may not work.
My liver is in tip-top shape, thank you.
So, so you have an excellent liver, so you have a great
liver.
experience with edibles. Some people may not. Number one, the way that your body consumes it, it goes, usually when you smoke it, THC binds to your CB1 receptors that are in your brain, your central nervous system. Now it has to travel through your digestive system, through your body, connecting your CB2 receptor, then go to your CB1 receptors. So it's slower to affect you, takes a lot longer, and it starts with a body high to head high, and it's a whole different experience. And some people,
best.
I would like to.
best.
I want to actually,
the best.
before we go on about the consumer experience, I want to tell you about my edible story. I'm not an edible connoisseur, but I did take a troche.
yes,
And so
And what is a
What is
troche?
a troche? So a troche is a brand, and they produce these little. They're really small. They're dissolvable little tablets, and they make them in CBD and they make them in THC. So I took a troche, and they're really, really small, and they're square, and so you just break them in quarters. And yeah, I took first I started off with a little quarter, and nothing happened after a couple hours, and then they just took the whole thing. So I consumed 120 milligrams of troche, of THC, and nothing happened.
well,
Len, can you explain that?
I can,
Please.
but I would like Katie to explain that for us. What do you think?
Well, I mean, if there really was 120 milligrams of cannabinoids in that product, because
THC.
Yes.
if there really was 120 milligrams of THC, because really, when you're paying for something, when you're buying a product, you're buying the cannabinoids, whether how much is THC and CBD, and that really impacts the price because the production for either one of those cannabinoids is very different. So I would really inquire if you really did get 120 milligrams, because 120 milligrams, you're lit.
Yeah, it's true. And this is actually a really good example.
You are beyond lit. I am lit at 10 milligrams.
I had a question for you on that.
Yeah.
Did your troche come with test results?
You know what? It was old packaging, and I don't remember. Most likely, no.
Right. So now with the regulations the way they're supposed to be, we're going to know what we're putting up, or we're supposed to know what we're putting in our bodies. So you're going to be able to go and see lab tested results for cannabinoids, how much of each cannabinoid's in there, hopefully terpenes, how much terpenes, what the percentages, heavy metals, pesticides. So we're going to be educated. So this whole process of what's going to happen in 2018 and how we're going to start regulating, that is the process of getting people to get the right product in their bodies. So you're not going to have that experience.
I guarantee you, if you had 120 milligrams of THC,
Yeah.
you would have
I mean, you guys,
You
I
tell me
wasn't like, you guys,
That lasts for days.
Okay, one of the edibles that I do consume is from Medicine Box, and they make these chocolates, and I had their 45 milligram a few months ago, and that I was just lit definitely for a couple of days.
and I think the things that, sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt, but I think one of the good things that's happening, especially in edibles, is this concept of microdosing. So microdosing is what it sounds like. It is a smaller dose, and usually it's between 2.5 milligrams and 5 milligrams. And you start to see a lot of mints, and that just takes the edge off. It probably won't get the average person pretty high, but dosing is very individual specific. So as you know, like it's your genes, it could be your body weight, it can be what you ate that day, etc. The strain of, because each strain has a different cannabinoid profile and different terpene profile. So there's a lot of things that go into, predicting what the result will be. But what microdosing does for you is it's this idea of I'm going to start with 5 milligrams, and then I'm going to work my way up so that I can get to my actual dosing. One of the companies I like is Gold Leaf. Are you guys the cutest
Yeah.
journals? And I actually, when I was really taking this seriously, I would write down, okay, I did 5 milligrams of this product. I didn't get results. What does 10 milligrams do for me? What does 15? 15 is my limit, like 15 and lights out Kimberly. Like,
Wow.
no more
Not
thoughts.
120?
Which is great because that means I don't spend a ton of money. I don't want a high tolerance. I don't. These people who take 50 or 100 milligrams, they're spending so much money.
Well, isn't there regulation in
5
place?
milligrams.
Aren't there regulations in place right now that you can't sell more than 10 milligrams?
So in
Yes.
2017, you could do like what would be the opposite of microdosing?
1,000.
1,000 milligram
You would get
macrodosing.
you would get these cookies and brownies that were like 1,000
Oh, yeah.
milligrams, and you have to like. You know, you want to protect that. No one's eating all that. So, like, you're eating off this cookie for, like, days. And it's so unsanitary and gross, but, like, I've had a brownie for, like, a hot 3 weeks.
You guys,
But now everything is individually portioned. It's usually around 10 milligrams or 5 milligrams because the industry is now saying that a good microdose is around 5 milligrams. And basically, if you were eating an edible, you would wait the time and then titrate yourself up. And that's how you know. And they actually tell you on the test results for flour. It's a little bit harder to, I think, microdose on we can micro puff.
You can micro puff.
you can micropuff, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they have vapes right now that
Yeah.
are like measured vapes.
Doses.
At doses at 2.5 milligrams is the average amount of puff. But maybe when you're smoking a joint, you puff more than I puff, so you're not really sure how much you're getting at.
No, they should have like an app for that where you just like, maybe that's what the cops are working on because they're, you know, you see all these signs now in LA about like, don't drive lit. Has anyone else seen those?
No,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
And I
haven't seen
think
it,
that they're
but-
trying to figure out how to do a breathalyzer for you, but it would be cool just for individuals to like, I don't know. How would that work, scientist? Do I
well-
stick it in my tongue and then it'll tell me like?
They're trying to do a
stick it in my tongue?
breathalyzer, but they're trying to do like a DNA swab to see how much. But it's still an individual experience.
It is an individual, yeah.
And I
But you
would
guys,
not give
let's
my
not
DNA to
digress.
cops.
Let's not digress from our shopping experience. So,
Yes.
we know your purpose. We know the purpose of. We need to figure out the purpose of why we're going into dispensary and consuming. So we are. We understand now what we want. What the experience we want to have for pain relief, for example. So. What do you recommend, like for a new shop, for a new consumer? You know, what questions should they ask, and what do you think the best way to explore products is?
Yeah, so when you're making a decision for pain relief, you're going in, you have to make a decision. Am I willing to have a psychoactive experience, or do I want to alleviate pain? Is my pain local, or is it somewhere else? So there's a lot of different ways that you can alleviate that pain. You can alleviate that with something that is half CBD, half THC ratio, where you're not going to get a psychoactive effect, but you will reduce the pain, especially if you have the right terpene profile. You can take it as a capsule. If you're comfortable with that going through your digestive system, you can smoke, vape, you can use a sublingual, or you can use a patch if it's local, which is transdermal, which will penetrate your skin and go into your bloodstream, which you will get that effect. Or you can use local topical, which will affect just the local area and bind with your receptors in your skin. So once you understand what type of product you want to go into, then have a conversation with your bud tender and see what products are available in that specific category. Make sure they're tested, number one. Make sure they have no pesticides, no heavy metals that come from the ground in your cultivation. So you have good, clean product, and then you consume that product specifically to meet your needs. But if you want to go in and you want to get high, figure out if you want to have an experience that gives you a little bit of a lift. So you consume something that's more a sativa dominant hybrid, or you want to kind of chill and calm, which will look at it more of an indica dominant hybrid.
So let's talk. I want to talk about brands a little bit because, there's so many brands out in the market. Well, now there's with 2018 fewer brands because fewer brands were able to be licensed. So where would you say the best place, the most credible place to do your brand product research would be before you head to the dispensary?
Brand product research, that's a good question. I mean, you have directories I like Leafly, and so on. So you would go in, the way that I would do it
Yes.
is I would look at different directories and look at what the reviews are of those products. What have people said about those products? Look at the test results from those from the test labs that actually test those products, and at some point it's trial and error. Go in and you see that this is a clean brand. It works for me. They make a consistent product throughout, and make sure you go and purchase that brand.
I think some specific resources for me. So for flour, Leafly all day long, because Leafly they have built a database of, it's like an algorithm for every different strain. So you can go in, look for what you want to feel: uplifted, calm, sleep. And if there's a Blue Dream that you're interested in, you type in Blue Dream and it'll tell you specifically where you can buy it, what did other consumers feel about it. So I really do think that Leafly is a great resource for flour. I love HelloMD for product reviews. They do a lot of Q&A where the brands will actually respond to you and tell you what to do. And HelloMD, what I like about it is that it comes from a very medicinal place. And then Weed Maps is on the other side, where if you just want to get lit, you can go to Weed Maps and see where you can get the flour. And what I like about that, you just type into the zip code where you are. It'll tell you all the shops. And I find that they have the best resources for what's in stock, because Weed Maps gets updated every day. Because I think that's one challenge for the consumer is you find a product that you like, it might not be in stock for a very long time, because the dispensary game is a cash business. And who knows if the sales rep came that week or that month, and et cetera. So finding your product and finding a reliable source for it, it's like a two-part system.
Yeah, I think with regulations changing, you're going to see much more consumers going to Yelp, going to Google, and leaving reviews. If you have a legitimate dispensary, I go into Yelp and I see what the reviews are, and now you can share menus and all that other stuff. So it'll start shifting away from Weed Maps and start going into a credible marketplace.
Yeah, I agree. And as a patient, some of the advice that I want to give to new users is don't be afraid to try products. And if you can afford, buy different kinds of products, buy flour, buy tincture, buy topical, buy a wide variety, a range of brands and products, and experiment on yourself, because cannabis is such an individual type of medicine. What will work for me, what will work for the bud tender, is not going to work for you.
Right.
So it's always trial and error, and take baby steps, and always educate yourself. No one's going to be responsible for your own education. The way the industry I see is moving is more products are being produced faster, and more innovative products are coming out, but the audience is not educated or responding. So there's a huge disconnect. And currently, if you really want to really have an amazing experience and heal yourself with cannabis, you have to take responsibility and educate yourself currently.
Well, one of the things that I'm working on personally is to try to take the guesswork out. So looking at a genetic profile, like a 23andMe of cannabis, looking at your full genome and being able to flag specific things that you should avoid and specific things that you should take more of. And then being able to look at traits that are specific to you and aligning that with products that are out in the market. So an example would be, let's say that every single product out there has been tested. So if we're able to tap into the test results and run an algorithm to see, for you, maybe it's avoid myrcene, take more limonene, do something that's half CBD, half THC. And if you can flag every single product that belongs in your category, and then you can go in and find, here's where you can find all those products that work for me. So that's kind of personalized medicine.
That's a beautiful future, and that's what we should all be striving for. I know for myself specifically, I really tried to go for the patient ed days. So a lot of brands will send a brand rep or send an educator to the dispensaries. And so I think a lot of people can't afford to buy a sampling of products unless you sign up for like a cannabis box delivery service. So there are a lot of companies that will do Birchbox of cannabis where you pay between $75 and $100, and you get an assortment of different things to try, and then that seems more economical. And so some of those companies are Club M is one, the Weekend Box is another, Lucky Box is another option, and I'm sure there's tons of them. But in lieu of that, I would actually go to the brand's Instagram page, and I know that's funny because I don't say their website, but literally their Instagram page, and find out when they are doing demos and patient ed days, because that's when you get to speak specifically to a brand rep who probably has better training and knows specifically that product. Because even if the bud tender knows all of the whatever has been on the page and the fact sheet, there's nothing better than like a brand rep who's probably used the product and have spoken to a number of consumers who know what is the majority of people experiencing, what are the ingredients, where are they sourced, who is the farmer, and you can ask really real questions that you might not be able to ask from a bud tender. So that would be my recommendation, is to find out where the brand is, and most of these brands are in shops 2-3 times a month, and just find where that demo day is near you.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation, because for the most part, in my opinion, bud tenders are going to recommend what they like themselves.
Yeah.
So I've been in shops where I stood and watched other brands and demos, and people come in there for pain, and I know there are several products for pain, and the guy's like, take this edible, or have you tried dabbing? And I'm like, yeah, that may not be the best idea to consume a concentrate that's 80 to 90% THC for your...
Why don't you describe what dabbing and concentrates are, because I recognize that might be a term we don't all know.
So there's a method to be able to take the actual plant, and I look at it as a distillation method, right? So if you're looking at alcohol, just kind of use that analogy. So you're going to buy your bottle of vodka. Your bottle of vodka has 40% real alcohol and it's 80 proof. The more you distill that, the more you isolate just pure alcohol. So grain alcohol, 190 proof, that's almost pure alcohol. The same way you would do that with cannabis. The more you distill, the more pure THC you get. So on the average, a plant that you would consume is somewhere around 20% THC. The more you distill that through heating it and other methods, ethanol extraction, the more you're going to focus on that one single cannabinoid, which is THC. So you're getting 3, 4, 5%, 5 times the potency of what you would if you were to smoke, flower. So, and then you have that in various different forms. You have that in an oil. You have that in a concentrated crumble, and they call it sort of, the first experience I've ever seen this, it looks like somebody is really doing drugs. You have this glass rig with this metal nail, they call it, and you kind of scrape it and you heat it with a torch.
It is so intense, and we should bring some and like actually show it, because it actually looks kind of like mucus, not like it's. I mean, it is what it is. It's like a yellow, and can either be like really crystally, or it's like runny and is like greenish, and it just looks.
It's intimidating. It does not look healthy.
Very.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem natural.
No.
And then you take the smallest amount, like maybe like a thing of sugar, like a little grain of sugar, and then you will have the most intense high.
Oh yeah.
I mean, instant.
Yeah, the first time I ever did that, I had no idea what I was putting in my body, and my tolerance is okay. I sat there, and I thought my heart was going to come out of my chest. I drank like 2 bottles of water, and all I could think about, at some point, I need to drive. So I sat there for like 3 hours trying to get sober from one single dose of a concentrate.
No. That's crazy. And you know what? That's so funny, because I think a lot of new elderly consumers, they're going to be, visiting dispensaries, and I think they're going to be so intimidated with all these concentrates on the market, and that's an intense experience and scary. Like, it's still it's scary for me.
Oh no.
No, I mean, like, I don't hang out with
Well, I don't like the fire,
concentrates. Yeah.
honestly. Like, the torch looks
It looks
intense.
intense.
Yeah, it
You
is
have-
intense.
And it's labor intensive, by the way.
Like,
You need
who's
two
doing all
people to
that?
assist you with a dab. Well, I need assistance with a dab.
Well, I don't like holding the flame, and you have to have the equipment, and instantly it like goes to your brain, and it's just so intense.
It is intense.
But there is one of my on YouTube. I think she's senior stoner. I don't know how old this woman is. She's like looks like she's in her 60s or 70s. Dabs every day, and she takes these long riffs, and she has all these big bongs, and she's all about getting seniors to dab.
Yeah, but
And she has this whole community. So there are some people who are into it. It's not.
No, it's a scene. Dabbing, and it's so interesting because the cannabis industry, just the cannabis scene, is so like compartmentalized.
Compartmentalized.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't like pronounce it. But you have so many different categories of people, and everyone kind of like it's all cliquey, you know. Like dabbers will be with dabbers, you know. You have the flower smokers; they're with the flower smokers. You have your floaters, you know. It's just such a different. It's such an interesting culture itself.
Yeah.
And subcultures. There's a lot of different interesting subcultures.
One thing I will say about concentrates, though, because it is not something. It is very intimidating. It's not something that that is often seen in a medicinal way. But I do want to say that, like, if you really needed a lot of cannabinoids, like
the best way.
100, 200, 300 milligrams because you're suffering from epilepsy or you're suffering from something else, that would take a lot of joints to smoke to get the same amount.
Yeah.
And it might be where you just don't have the time, or you have a professional job, so that if you can just take a dab before you go to work and you get all those cannabinoids in, and it's one hit and you're able to function, and that's the cannabinoids that your body needs, it is the purest way, and it's super effective. It's
the best.
unfortunate that it's seen in this rec light, but there is a medicinal value. It just hasn't really been presented that way.
But there's a different way to consume that. You can consume a concentrate in an oil, in a concentrated oil, and you can take it out of a syringe. And I've worked with many patients that you take less than a grain of rice and you start, and then you build up your tolerance to THC. People who dab, and dabbing grandma, her neurotransmitters stop resetting themselves, so they're stuck on that THC. So she can keep consuming that without feeling the same effect. So if you take a couple days off, let's see grandma do a whole nail dab.
She's impressive, man.
Dabbing grandma.
She's like the double dabs.
Everybody, look at
the
dabbing
double dabs. Double dabs. No, not for me. Well, do you have any last tips? Cannabis 101, so anything about the plant that we haven't talked about, or if you have any tips for people who are walking into a dispensary for the first time. Let's do a round robin of if you had to tell someone off the street, what is the best thing you can do if you were interested in exploring a cannabis product, what is the one thing you would tell them?
Same thing I told my mom, start with a topical. If you have a fear of getting high, start with a topical. And she did that, and she put it on her shoulder, and it worked for her for a while. And then I asked her, is your shoulder feeling better? And she said, yes. I said, so cannabis is working? She goes, I'm not sure. I'm sorry, it's the only thing she took, but it was working for her. So anyway, the goal is start with something that will alleviate your fear. Once you know that it's working, let's move on to tinctures and sublinguals that give you a consistent dose and a consistent amount of cannabinoids.
That's awesome advice. I have to agree that the topicals are a great introduction, the friendliest introduction. To even a CBD topical without THC is a great introduction into the cannabis family and what it can do. And yeah.
I think the one tip that I would recommend is just getting educated. So really looking at those resources. There are a lot of great resources on a number of different websites, which we can mention in our show notes. But I think I would really want to get educated, and I would want to understand, what am I looking to do? Is it pain management, or am I trying to get anxiety reduction? What is it that I'm trying to do, and empower myself? And then the next thing, so I'm going to have a two-parter, I would just go to a dispensary and just milk the experience without the intention of buying. I think the first time I went to a dispensary, I didn't buy anything, but I asked a lot of questions and I just wanted to get myself comfortable, and it was a little overwhelming, so I didn't buy anything that time. But I had the information that I needed. Then I went home, verified, Googled. You know, I took a couple pictures on the low, like, okay, what does that mean? And then I just empowered myself for the next time to really know what to look for.
That's awesome. And I want to add to that, I really want to encourage people not to be intimidated into going into a dispensary. For me, even still today, it is an intimidating experience, even though I'm familiar with products, I'm familiar with a lot of things in the industry. But it's like the first time every time for me. But you know, the security and all of that is very overwhelming just to go get medicine, you know, the environment itself. But be open, and you know, this is all for your well-being, and it's natural, and it's one of the best medicines we have out there.
I have one single tip. So I asked people how many people had a bad experience with an edible every time I talk, and almost every hand goes up. So just as a tip, CBD, cannabidiol, counteracts the effect of THC. So if you're having a bad experience with THC, make sure you have some really good, tested, clean, really concentrated CBD that will help you counteract the effect of THC if you're feeling yourself getting a little too high.
This is the best advice ever.
I think I've experienced this a couple of times, so I have to admit that is good advice. Do we have a listener letter this
We do.
week?
My God, we do. You guys, and it's an awesome one.
Oof.
They're all awesome.
Yeah, they are. 1 second. Ooh, making noises.
I am ready because you got a good one last time.
Yeah. Oh,
you're
yeah.
taking
No,
this
this
So
is a really
I'm
good one.
excited because sometimes she throws us some real twisters.
Yeah.
You guys, this is very relevant. So the question is, what is the logic for capping dosage of edibles at 10 milligrams for the rec market, for all of it?
What is the logic? I don't agree with the logic, but I think the logic is to really protect people from having bad experiences. And it's based on a standardization. I also don't believe in the food pyramid. Because how do you know
Milk
what
doesn't do the body good?
I mean, it's paid for by the lobby. And also, do you know my body? Are you me? So they've decided that 10 milligrams is what is the limit for a body, because most people probably will not have a bad experience at 10 milligrams. But we know you could have a gene that you're carrying that it doesn't matter if it's 10 milligrams or 1 milligram. It could affect your body poorly, depending on the strain that they used in the edible. Again, if you are really solving for a chronic condition or you have a medical need, 10 milligrams might not be enough. I have someone that I work with who consumes 200 milligrams for her lupus every day.
Yeah.
And so I think the downside of that is that's going to be incredibly expensive for her if the way that she medicated was that, and it is how she medicated, she just took a piece of a chocolate bar every night. Now she's going to have to buy that many chocolate bars to get the same amount of medicine, or switch to another form factor to medicate. So, I mean, I appreciate the logic of I want to protect people from having a bad experience, and I'm going to cap this at this milligram count. But I also think that there are some restrictions as it relates to people who have big needs. And I actually I have seen a lot of consumers reach out like, we love this microdose moment because it makes cannabis clean, right? I can be a developer, and I can be the accountant, and I could be the soccer mom, and it's taking my edge off, and it's like my red wine at the end of the night. Positioning, but it's leaving out a huge market of people who have chronic pain, who 10 milligrams is not going to solve anything.
No.
Yeah,
So
10 milligrams came specifically from Colorado. The governor of Colorado sat and testified when we were trying to do regulations in California, and he said one of the challenges they had was regulating edibles in Colorado when they went recreational. So he made that recommendation because that's what they did in Colorado. So there's no scientific basis to it. It's just they did it, so let's do the same thing and kind of try to figure it out from there.
Yeah, so hopefully this has been super educational for you. This was our Cannabis 101 primer, where we talked about all things about the plant, and then we talked about what you should look out for when you go to the dispensary for the first time, shared our tips, and then we just had our wonderful listener letter. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We're Plant and Prosper everywhere. Thank you guys so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.